What is race today? How are humans categorized in society? Race can be defined as a grouping of humans based on shared physical and social traits into categories viewed distinct by society. But what does race mean to you? Success in America is an ever-changing yet established idea that is prevalent in potentially all aspects of American culture. The American dream, a known motto around the world, is what draws all people to the West. But is the American dream attainable? To what extent can this dream be achieved? The ability of race to affect a person's success is not something to be ignored. Depending on their race, they could lead a more successful life in many aspects. Already a known ideology in American culture and society, race does affect your success, and being a minority usually affects this negatively. But to what extent are races being affected? What races are being affected the most?
Many see it as impossible for racism and problems to occur towards white men and women. And while this might be true for many white people, there is still a limit to what they can get from their race. Where is this limit to their privilege, and where does this prominent privilege of starting with success come from? This success and privilege can be shown through education, as 72% of white students make it through a 4-year degree of college in 6 years, with 56% of students being in debt, while African Americans only have 46% of students getting through college in those 6 years, and 72% of those students are in debt from this college. This more successful education due to race can lead into better lives later on, as the unemployment rates for white Americans is lower than 20% for males, but at around 35% for African American males. Many people see the white race as having easy lives, but no matter what race you are, you can still be pushed down due to social and economic positions you are put into by your family. That person will still have to work hard to come out of the place they were in when they were younger. This can be shown by David R. Williams as he explains the pressures from race and where you live can affect people's lives.
One study of the 171 largest cities in the United States concluded that there is not even one city where whites live under equal conditions to blacks, and that the worst urban context in which whites reside is considerably better than the average context of black communities.
This influence of life can be shown as a graphic put out by New York Times. It is able to show the areas in America and the different races in those areas. It shows that mostly the white students are on the richer side of the scale, while being at an average 1 grade level ahead in intelligence, while black students are in the poorer areas and have a majority of the students being 1 grade level lower in intelligence.
In this day and age, when racial segregation has passed, are African Americans able to succeed just as well, even though they may be minorities? Of course they should be able to, but why does society defer this? Although the overall standard of living and economy for African Americans has gone up in the past 30 years, according to Carrie Paul, household income for the average black family increased 42.8% since 1968, but remains only 61.6% of that of the typical white household. Even though conditions have increased for the better for African Americans, they still lag behind and not do as well as other cultures and races. Before graduating high school, on average, many African students already lack the resources they need in order to prosper and at least to get into college. Only 57% of black students have access to the full range of math and science courses necessary for college readiness, compared to 81% of Asian American students and 71% of white students, as stated in a news report done by State's News Service. When an individual is placed into a negative environment, an environment that does not provide enough so that an individual can flourish, how can anyone expect to become a successful individual in society? This trend, though, is greater in African Americans, that they are placed into that negative environment. or they have other commitments that others may not have, making them more vulnerable to failure. This can even be linked to the perception of them by others and how they are the ones teaching that how can one succeed. They already think you have failed. When Mrs. Brownquin, a guidance counselor at South Windsor High School, was asked if she had ever faced a scenario where racism affected her chances of success, she brought up a scenario she faced in college.
You're saying that if I was in a relationship with somebody of a different race, and I would be affecting their chances of getting a mortgage, a home, because of my race and my involvement with that person. And she said yes, right to my face. So
even in the workplace, African Americans are treated unfairly when compared to white workers. These two races, black and white, may work at the same level and possess the same skill, and yet African Americans are treated much less fairly and are paid much less compared to whites. And this connects back to the environments they are placed in, the limited beliefs that these environments may place on them, the bad habits they may gain from these environments. When a person of a minority race is placed into a community where they are told they will fail, their beliefs in themselves and of the world around them will become limited. This leads directly to failure. Yet, Morgan Freeman, in an interview with Don Lemon, when asked whether or not his race affected his success, he had a surprising answer.
You said it was fascinating because you called it bull when you said people can't, pull themselves up. Do you think that race plays a part in wealth distribution, or either a mindset that you can't
Today?
or cannot? Yeah.
No,
You don't?
no, I don't. Hey, you and I, we're proof. Why would race have anything to do with it? Put your mind to what you want to do and go for that.
Although Morgan Freeman lived through an era of heavy segregation and at this point has seen it all, he still believes that you can overcome this. Is it possible to even be in the worst racial conditions possible and yet be able to come over the negative environment placed around you and become a successful person? Don Lemon and Morgan Freeman have done so. Known to be another minority in American culture, Latino Americans are also affected negatively overall in their success efforts. Factors of influence that affect them negatively are also prevalent towards their race. According to a study done by Jens Manuel Krogstad, among Hispanics ages 25 to 29, just 15% of Hispanics have a bachelor's degree or higher. By comparison, among the same age group, about 41% of whites have a bachelor's degree or higher, as do 22% of blacks and 63% of Asians. This gap is due in part to the fact that Hispanics are less likely than some other groups to enroll in a four-year college, attend an academically selective college, and enroll full-time. Latino Americans clearly lag behind academically. Nearly half of Latino Americans who go to college attend a public two-year school, community college, which is the highest percentage out of any other race or ethnicity. Many Hispanics also cite that as a reason to not enroll to college, they need to support their family. Cultural lid placed onto them, another factor of influence. According to a study done by Kelly Field, nationwide, the proportion of Hispanics who graduate within 6 years is still 10 percentage points lower than the proportion of whites, according to the Education Department. The proportion who graduate in 4 is nearly 14 percentage points lower. Compared to their white peers, Latino Americans are less likely to attend preschool and more likely to attend low-performing primary and secondary schools, where teacher experience is inadequate and resources given are minimal, another factor of influence due to their placement in a negative environment. Cultural expectations also create massive hurdles for Latino Americans. Hispanic men, socialized to be providers, may feel pressure to drop out and work to support their families. Women raised to be caregivers can find themselves caught between two sets of demands, their families and the professors, as stated by Jennifer Morton, an assistant professor of philosophy at the City College of New York, who grew up in Peru.
Can the race of Asians be connected to how successful they are? To many, the answer would be yes. But this is brought up through social stereotypes leading many to see them as an overall successful race in America. Although this might be true for some, to what extent does their race impact their successes through life? To many, it seems that education is a major factor to their success more than the barriers of their race. Even to Amir Farid, who immigrated to America in the 90s, sees that to him to achieve success, he needed to be able to have the tenacity to learn and be educated to get places in life.
The second part of your question was around the factors. Race is definitely a factor, but I don't think it's one of the most important factors. As I think about the factors of success, you always want to start with education, then think about skills, then think about money and wealth, think about creativity, think about competencies, think about mindset, attitude, dedication, commitment. Those are the ones that are more important, at least to me, both personally and professionally, than just the race factor.
This push for education by the Asian race is apparent as with many graphics and surveys. It shows that many have at least a bachelor's degree. According to Jennifer Lee, a professor of sociology, that in Los Angeles alone, 51% of Asians have a bachelor degree, compared to the next highest race being white, only having 48%, and blacks having 26%, showing a large decline between Asians and other races. This overall bigger push for education can lead to better jobs and possibly more happiness through having higher ranking jobs. However, it seems that eventually there is a point where race has a much more influential point in success.
Personally, has never felt that I was being discriminated against when it comes to an opening or a position as I was getting into corporate America. However, when you do move up the ladder and when you think about executive level position, there is a barrier still that we need to cross. There is a chasm that we have to go through, and at times race does play a role.
Clearly, as you move up the ranks, the effect of racism is much more evident as you try to move up in job positions. This can also be shown as Harvard was put into a lawsuit about Asian discrimination. They're seen as having de facto racial quotas, racial stereotypes, and higher standards. And throughout their lives, this can even lead to unbearable study burdens, stress, depression, and many other serious psychological issues among Asian American children, as according to Xinhua News Agency. Even with these statistics, not all Asians are able to have this success in education in their lives. Only 51% of the Asians in LA with bachelor degrees, only 18% of Vietnamese men and women had them, while there were also only 30% Cambodian with them. This is able to show that not all races within Asia believe in this push for education and success through wealth later in life. With these different cultures comes different beliefs in success and how to live their lives. Many people see the Asian race as the model minority as they put forth this push for education and success, but they aren't the only race that does this, as the effects can be seen with the Latinos and Africans in America, as they try to better themselves from the conditions that they grew up in and do more than what was previously done from other generations. The lives of people are influenced every day by race in one way or another, for good or bad. However, it seems that in the end, the effect of race has been able to be reduced over time. Races are starting to catch up to each other, but there are still some barriers that remain, causing problems for them when they try to get jobs or get through or into college. As we continue to move forward, if society accepts these cultural differences and seems to understand the benefits of all humans, regardless of race, we can introduce new ideas on success and eliminate whether or not race plays a role in these ideas.